All right, it is 7 p.m. I will call to order the June 4th meeting of the Amity City Council. Please rise and join me in saluting the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Tasha, will you take roll for us, please?
Melissa Ford,
Present.
Michael Rocco, Rachel Rocco,
Present.
Chad Luker, absent, Alex Thompson, absent, and Mary, Caleb Shields.
Here.
And Mary
Here as well. We'll start off this evening with the consent agenda. We have budget versus actuals, the minutes from the regular May City Council meeting, and budget committee minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. The consent agenda passed. We'll move on to citizen comments and questions. This is an opportunity to present items not on the regular agenda. Please state your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Name and address?
Yes, and can you come to the microphone only because then it's recorded better.
Jack Apple, 208 CCRLS Agreement, North. I just need to see what I need to do to try and keep my fence height in the front where it is for privacy, or I have zero privacy if I have to put that down. They walk in front of the school to go to school. I pretty much lose everything. I just like to keep it. I'll move it. Please don't make me get down so that I can watch everybody on the way there when I walk by.
Okay.
So I'm looking for
All right.
that.
I'm not sure of the procedural on that because fences don't need permitted through the city, but they do need to follow our codes and ordinances. And so that would be a staff decision on a variance on that.
And house space is a stupid way that doesn't give you the access like every other house, or not every other house, but they can tap off the side of the house and go this way. Mine goes this way, so I have both my doors or both my patios are on the same street. You want me to see them both. So there's no getting around and being private. I'm gonna have no privacy whatsoever if I have to drop to a fence that high. I'd love to take pictures and show what other places have the same thing. And I put it in the wrong place. I did not do that by any means on purpose. I thought the front of my house was facing the way it's facing, and it's not facing a manner that gives me any idea now what way to go. But I really like to just keep some privacy and protect myself.
All right.
Thanks.
Well, we really appreciate you coming to speak with us tonight. Like I said, that's not something that we would decide as a council tonight, but I will check in with staff and check out procedure for a variance. And just for some context, this is a house that sits between other houses where this gentleman built his fence. It's above our code height, but it was also built too far forward. And so he's saying that he is happy to move it back. But he's asking for some height variance. I don't think that's a council jurisdiction. Yeah.
And I have no idea what I can do to do it the right way, because I didn't do it the right way the first time. So, I don't know how do I go about it, I guess, more than anything else. I wasn't looking for an answer. I was just looking for somebody to say, show us what you mean, because I don't have a clue how to do that without a little more time.
Okay.
But yeah, that's all I was looking for. I didn't, and I have sliding gates, so all of that material all goes by when I tear it up, it can't really put that up, so I lose a lot, so I'm willing to do that, but I really just would like to be able to sit behind my house and not have to watch everybody come by. And I honestly thought that I was okay doing what I did, because I have a 4-foot fence in the front of my house, but
Not
exactly the right
not
front,
street
you know.
frontage.
Right, but, yeah, and other houses there have the same thing as mine, but they're just on another street, but they have two exits and entrances from Jellison, and I don't know the first street. But they've got 6 foot all the way around the front of theirs and right straight across. It's certainly not the front yard, but it's a 6 foot fence. It's the exact same fence as, well, it's not the exact same height, but same height. And I went last night and I measured everything because I knew I was off and everything measures out 6 yards from the street in -5, so I blew it. So, I just need to know, is there any way that I can do anything? If there's not, then I won't waste anybody's time trying.
Well, no, we do appreciate you coming, and like I said, we appreciate an audience and we appreciate people that will come to council. And so, to the best of my knowledge, this will be a staff thing, but I will follow up and, we are all representatives of the citizens, and so I'll help you work with staff to figure out what solutions we can come to.
The poles are tall, they weren't supposed to be that way, except on the face side of the new house is being built, and that's the reason I put the wall up. We split the property so that we would never have a house there. That changed as soon as the kid bought it, that changed, so he's got a house right on my, so I put the fence up, so that I have some privacy there too, I feel really bad about what I did.
Okay, well, we're gonna move on to old business, but thank you, and I'm guessing we have your contact information so we can do some follow-up. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Old business, tonight we have none. And we will start next with a public hearing. So this is a public hearing on the budget for fiscal year 2025-2026. I will open the public hearing and say that the public hearing before the Amity City Council is now open to receive comments on the proposed budget and state revenue sharing. Are there any members of the public that would like to provide comments? No. And I don't believe we have anyone online.
Yep.
So hearing no desire for public comment, the public hearing portion before the Amity City Council will be closed. And we will move on to the resolution. So the first resolution, 2025-08, is a resolution that sets spending limitations by appropriating funds and also imposes and categorizes the tax at a rate of 3.6105 as adopted by City Council.
I move to approve the budget as described. Sorry. This one is behind on this one this year.
I didn't mean to interrupt. So this resolution sets the spending limitations, appropriate funds, imposes categories tax, but we don't have the background is not the whole budget. So do we want to take a moment to go over the budget, because there's actually some changes from the approved budget committee budget.
So the budget should have been included in our changes.
Yeah, but council hasn't approved that.
Oh, okay.
And then we'll have the 3 resolutions in a row. That all.
Okay.
Nathan, do you mind giving a quick overview of the budget committee meetings and any changes that are coming before the council since that approved budget?
Absolutely. Sorry. The I believe the only change, right, is the 100,000. So the only change since the budget committee meeting was that I realized I completely forgot about, or at least included in the budget, that DEQ fined the city $17,000 for various violations in the past. We're able to use about 15,000 of that towards a supplemental environmental project. Basically, we have to identify a project within the city of Amity or within our sewer system that can help us meet compliance in the future going forward with DEQ. Basically help us, get up to speed, get into full compliance, and then maintain that going forward. It's been a bit of a challenge finding a project that makes sense and is meaningful and is within the city's kind of budgetary range for something like that. The engineers and I have gone back and forth on a couple of ideas, as well as prices on those ideas. I have 2 applications into DEQ for 2 different supplemental environment projects. One of which would be the foundation or outline of the SCADA system. That was one that Keller, our engineers, originally suggested, basically to help track, flow data, chemical data, anything that's going on with our system. That SCADA system is supposed to help track and trend it over time. That way we can better see flow history. We can have a much better understanding of our system and how it interacts with weather conditions, different times of the year, those kinds of things. Really gives a much more accurate picture of I&I versus what we have now, which is just, daily operator reads a flow meter and writes it down. And so things like that would help us. The problem that I had on that one was that the total estimate for a SCADA system across the board was $400,000. And as it was, I was hoping for something, for an SCP project closer to like 30 to 40,000 to kind of match our $15,000 fine. I think that we could do a kind of foundational SCADA system, a really bare bones, kind of focus on the few key features and make room for expansion in the future with 100,000. So that's what I proposed in here. The other idea that we had for a supplemental environment project is right now our effluent doesn't have any pH adjustment for it, and so occasionally the pH on our sewer effluent is too high. Actually, usually in our case it's a little too low. It tends to get the lower range is 6.5, and we will occasionally have 6.3, 6.4. And so we have chemicals that can help us dial it in and bring it up to a more stable place, if you will. But putting the chemical injection, skid, and the pump in for that was something that the engineer and I also argued on the cost estimate for that. They again estimated that closer to 100,000. That could help us, meet the pH compliance limit on our wastewater system going forward, and it would be a good help, but it still seems a bit more than I want to spend on something like that. So I'm still working through that in the background, still working on getting either of those projects accepted by EQ for moving forward. They may say either of those work well for the criteria and want us to find something else, or they go like one or the other more. But so what I want to request in the budget is a line item for up to $200,000 towards an SCP project. It's a bit more than I was originally hoping for, but I'm confident I can find something to keep it under 100,000. I'd like to say I can keep it a lot under 100,000, but I would also like some room if there's a chance to make a meaningful difference for our sewer system with, either SCADA or some other feature that would really help us. I want to have the room to be able to do that as well. I suggested pulling 60,000 of that 100,000 from the sewer fund ending balance, and then 40,000 as a transfer from SVC. Something like a SCADA system or the pH adjustment, both of which are upgrades to capital facilities, could qualify. The SCADA system is specifically listed in the wastewater facility planning study that the city council adopted back in 2022, 2023, 22. And so it is listed in there as a capital improvement that we're planning for the future. So it would be eligible for at least some FTC. The exact amounts of that can be tricky. I estimated about 40,000.
So just to clarify, the budget in front of us that we are able to adopt today as a council is the exact same that we deliberated on for 4 hours at our budget committee meeting, except for the change of 40,000 coming into the sewer fund from SCCs and 60,000 coming from the ending fund balance. Other than that, the budget before us is the same. And so with that, Councilor Bojorquez, would you like to continue your motion?
I move to approve the budget as described by the city administrator and approve resolution 2025-08, a resolution adopting the 2025-2026 fiscal year budget, making appropriations and levying and categorizing ad valorem taxes for the city of Amity for the 2025 through 2026 fiscal year.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay. It's been properly moved and seconded that the City of Amity City Council approve for fiscal year 2025-26 an ad valorem rate of 3.6105 per thousand of assessed valuation to be certified for collection to Yamaha County and adopt the budget as described by the city administrator. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, please signify by saying no. We'll move on to resolution number 2025-09. Is that a misprint on the agenda? Yes.
Oh, yeah.
2025-09, election to receive state revenue sharing. And the attached resolution is required by the state in order for Amity to be included in state revenue sharing. It just is a resolution stating that we provide police services, street construction, maintenance, and lighting, sanitary sewer services, storm sewer services, planning, zoning, subdivision, which we have to have 4 of in order to receive state revenue sharing.
I move to approve, resolution 2025-09, a resolution declaring the city of Amity's election to receive state revenues for fiscal year 2025 through 2026.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve resolution 2025-09, a resolution declaring the city of Amity's election to receive state revenue for fiscal year 2025-2026. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. Councilor Michael Blanco, did you vote or are you abstaining? Okay, can you, how should we do that? Should I ask for abstentions as well? Okay, just so we have it on the record. I'm sorry, that's my bad. I just was trying to listen to everyone's voice. And for the record, Councilor Rachel Blanco, did you vote in the affirmative of the vote? Okay. My eyes can't be on.
No, that's okay.
At the same time.
Did I not say it?
No, you did. I just, all the voices.
Sorry.
You're fine. Okay, next we have. How is this different? How is 09 and 07 different?
So I was asking that question as well. Basically, 09, Tasha, correct me if my understanding is wrong, but 09 is electing to receive state revenues, basically saying, yes, the city of Amity does want to receive state revenues.
And then,
07 is certifying we meet the requirements by providing at least 4 of the following municipal services.
okay.
They're kind of pulled together.
Separate ones for the state.
Yeah.
Okay. We're good. I just,
Discussion first, and then
Yeah.
yeah, let's.
And I look like 9 o'clock.
that is fine. Okay, so we've elected to receive them, and now we are going to pass a resolution that we are
In
able-
compliance.
Yeah, in compliance to receive them. Great. So we have before us resolution 2025-07. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move to adopt Resolution 2025-07, a resolution certifying that the City of Amity meets all requirements to receive state shared revenues for fiscal year 2025 through 2026.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 2025-07, a resolution certifying that the City of Amity meets all requirements to receive state shared revenues for the fiscal year 2025 through 2026. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Any abstentions? Okay. Thank you. Before we move on to new business, I see we have Deputy Sam Press. Do you like to come up and give a quick sheriff's office report to go along with what we have today?
So, I'm sure most of you have seen Russ Van Wedren in town. He's like, big guy. He worked here for 20-something years. Was a sergeant from 2003 to like 2018, maybe. He retired, went to Polk County, and then just recently came back. So, he's in town. He's filling in temporarily. They opened the process, I think it was last week, for anybody that's interested in coming to the hearing, called an invitation spot. And they had 3 people put in for that. Van Weber being one of them. And I would imagine that should be, by meeting next month, we'll have somebody for sure locked in. But like I said, Van Weber is filling in that spot temporarily. So he's working the Monday through Thursday day shift spot right now. So Sergeant Kerr has been moved to, I don't think anybody saw this, but we started up our drug team again. So Sergeant Kerr, because he's got a pretty good background doing the drug cases, they moved him from the road to supervise the drug team, and then Sergeant Jacob Rex will oversee Amity. So he is currently on day shift, and we just had a shift rotation. So it might be a couple months before he gets down here on nights to make a meeting.
Can you repeat his first name?
Jacob Rex. And he's been here for 15 years or so he's a good guy. So, but yeah, other than that, it said it sounds like there were 3 people that put in, all would be good candidates for what we're doing. So, super nice, likable people. So.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that there's lots of people that are interested in working in Amity. We appreciate the services, and we try to be appreciative of you all. So, any questions for the deputy this evening?
One more thing, the drug team, that being, we're starting that back up. If there is any short stick traffic, I don't know if I said this last time, but don't hesitate to say something to one of us or send an email or fill out the claim forms. Because the more, and it's nice when you can say, here you go, here's this, here's some info on this house, whatever it is.
Okay.
So yeah, because that's their job. They're on more cars and they drive around home. So yeah.
So quick question with that, do you know if there's going to be any, advertisement or marketing from the sheriff's office, or should we just put something out to kind of share that?
So I think they just posted something on social media
Okay,
just recently. So I'll check on that one back to you.
okay, yeah, if you could just let Nathan know, because
Yeah.
we can come up with something, but I think that's really important to let people know, like, fill out the complaint form or make that non-emergency phone call, but.
Yeah. You know, and I get a lot of people that they come and knock on the door and we're not always here 24/7. So always the easiest thing is just the non-emergency number. So,
Okay. All right,
but I'll look at that.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, our first item of new business this evening is a CCRLS Intergovernmental Agreement. This is the annual agreement for library services through Chemeketa Cooperative Regional Library Service. Each year, an amount is paid to the library for participating along with the services that our public library provide. So the fee paid to the city in the current fiscal year was $9,648, and this would just be the intergovernmental agreement to put that going next year.
I move to approve the intergovernmental agreement with Chemeketa Cooperative Regional Library Service and authorize the city administrator to sign.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the intergovernmental agreement with the Cooperative Regional Library Service and authorize the city administrator to sign. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. Our next item is fine-free library. So the Amity Public Library would like to join other members of CCRLS in becoming a fine-free library. Last year, we had about $95 in late fees that came in, but it's really out of the norm in this day and age, region, and through CCRLS to charge late fees and overdue fines. And so the library came to Nathan and asked if this could be brought in front of us to drop that. Any input, questions, or concerns from council? Anything else staff wants or needs to add?
Not necessarily. I think it was helpful clarification just so everyone knows. CCRLS does still, they don't charge like the late fees necessarily, but if somebody has an item for more than 3 weeks, they do get a letter in the mail saying, hey, you've lost our item or damaged it. Please pay the cost of replacing the item plus a processing fee or give us back our book or our item, right? And so usually those, just because it's a higher dollar amount, more serious of a letter. And our librarian said that those have been much more successful in actually getting books returned than 10 cents a day in late fees. So.
They will also text you. Those need 3 letters, they'll text you. Last year's $95 in late fees, and I'm sure I paid over 20 bucks. So, good thing I'm not voting tonight.
It is a really nice program though, because they now also just renew your book if you have it out and no one else has it reserved. So it is a nice benefit.
And there's still that safeguard for not losing material. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the Amity Public Library's transition to a fine-free library and allow the library to no longer charge late fees for overdue items.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the Amity Public Library's transition to a fine-free library and allow the library to no longer charge late fees for overdue items. Any further discussion? Just
Oh, I just wanted to bring to attention that Nathan called out that instead of changing our fee schedule, we will do that at a later date. And so we'll just null and void that currently, but work on getting it in print. The update. Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Item C of new business is the Clean Water Loan Agreement. This came before us in April. And there was consensus for approval except for the project completion date was due as October of 2025. And so council asked if we could look into getting that extended to give time for us to use those full amount of funds as loan and get the most out of that timeframe. So other than that, nothing has changed in the agreement. Everything's there except for the payback. It's changed. But we have two recommended motions that would go along with approving this. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns? If none, I would ask for a motion.
Do we also need to approve the resolution? Is my question. So we're doing it too, okay. I move to approve the planning loan agreement DEQ as drafted and authorize the city administrator to execute the agreement.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the planning loan agreement with DEQ as drafted and authorize the city administrator to execute the agreements. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion. Did you get that motion in a second? I was reading as I was talking. Okay, and then we have a second part to that same agenda item.
I move to adopt Resolution 2025-06, a resolution authorizing the City of Amity to undertake wastewater planning studies and accept loan funding from the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt resolution 2025-06, a resolution authorizing the City of Amity to undertake wastewater planning studies and accept loan funding from the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. The next item is the Rice Lane annexation request. So in February, the Amity Planning Commission held its public hearing to consider the annexation application for property located in the southeast corner of Merlot Street on the north side of Rice Lane. Planning Commission recommended that approval, and that came to City Council on March 12th, where we held a public hearing and approved that as well. So before us now is an ordinance that would allow the formal annexation and zone the property.
Did anyone have any questions?
Or did you have anything to add?
I move to adopt ordinance 687, an ordinance declaring territory annexed to the City of Amity and amending the Amity zoning map.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 687, an ordinance declaring territory annexed to the City of Amity and amending the Amity zoning map. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. Next item is Transportation and Growth Management Grant Application. We have quite a bit of background here. And this is just authorizing an application program. Nathan, I'll hand it over to you. If there's anything you want to add or give an overview of what you see happening.
Thank you. Let me there we go. Yeah, the Transportation and Growth Management, or if I say TGM, it's not, TGM Grant Program, now accepting applications. I believe it would be a great fit for the city of Amity. You know, right now we're in the process of completing a comprehensive plan update, really trying to lay that framework for how the city of Amity wants to kind of manage or plan future growth, things that we want to address. And one of the discussions that has come up is kind of following up that comprehensive plan work with really diving in and figuring out if our development code and kind of our development code, design standards, some of those subsequent plans are really achieving what we wanted in that comp plan. When this opportunity popped up, I submitted a pre-application form asking about a couple of different kinds of projects that the TGM program might be able to help us with. One of which is the two projects I asked about. One was looking at our current city street design standards, given the width of them and the width of the ideal projects, if you will, called out in like our TSP, have been almost difficult for the city to even achieve because of the right-of-way constraints and the how much the streets will be growing from where they are currently. And so I asked if it would be worth taking a look at those and seeing about right-sizing is the term that they like to use, but looking at those and seeing if a smaller width made sense, or if there was really strong justification for those wider widths on some of our smaller streets, and seeing if we could kind of come to a better balance on some of those, make them more achievable for the city, so that we have a clearer plan. That way, when we get some grant funding to repave streets or to put in some sidewalks, it doesn't seem as much of a question of like, well, how do we do this, right? The other kind of project or idea that I had that I wanted to discuss was to take a look at our downtown standards and development code. For reference, I believe it was in 2003, the city of Amity adopted a variety of changes to the city's development code, one of which added the code language for a central business zone or a central business district. That which zoning could be applied. I believe the intention was to apply it to the kind of downtown area down here, kind of really focus in on where some of our buildings are taller, try to allow for a greater building height, maybe less of a setback, fewer parking restrictions, some of those. That zone was never actually applied. So we have the development, we have the code, or the language anyway, from 2003 that we put into our book, but we never said these are the properties that should have these standards. And so between that and the downtown development standards that were kind of put together in 2010, there's been a few efforts over the years to take a look at the city's downtown, guide its development growth, and figure that out. Given the kind of several open lots that are there currently, and the economic development pressure that we're seeing in the county, I really think that it's important that we focus on what we want our downtown to look like, what we want our commercial areas to look like, what kinds of businesses we want in the city of Amity, and maybe how we can either guide that growth or allow for certain things. But in Oregon, because of the way the development code is set up, it's really important to have those conversations before the question arises. If, a certain business showed up and wanted to go downtown, and if they met all of the current standards, the city would have to allow them, regardless of how the city and the community felt about it. And so I think it's really important to take a look at what we have, take a look at what we want, and figure out the planning kind of phase, how to get there, what we should allow, what we shouldn't. And so that was kind of the basis behind this idea. I applied to the TGM Grant program. I got some feedback from a grant personnel, a grant coordinator. He liked the idea. He said it was very similar to other successful grant projects that they've done in the past. And that he thinks honestly that we could kind of integrate both ideas into one project, focusing on a downtown kind of master plan, and then because Amity is so small, it's worth looking at how our other local streets connect to our downtown and what those look like as well. So he felt they could kind of go together. But so that's the project that I like to apply for and kind of develop is a downtown master plan, if you will. Are there any questions? Are there any things that we'd like to see or steer away from?
What grant amount is available and what would you be asking for, and then what are you basing them on?
The grant coordinator had a lot of good guidance for that. They've done a lot of, similar projects. They're familiar with the cost of the water plan. I think he said like up to 200,000 to 300,000 is available, and he recommended that we ask for 150,000 to 200,000. The transportation, the TGM grant program is a little bit different in how it works than most grants. Essentially, ODOT, if we're given the grant, ODOT, the facilitating agency, helps us put together a scope of work, goes out for the contract, or puts out an RFP. They get the contract. They manage the contractor, they manage the planning agent, the consulting agency, and really I get to ignore some of that and kind of focus in on the fun part, the planning.
But that would include like outreach, the town halls, the trying to get.
It would.
I feel like that would be really important. I think it's a great idea.
So in combining them, would they be focusing on just neighboring streets? Because I think it would be really great to also have guidance on a wider search, because we come into this so often with sidewalks and streets and where do we move, how far do we make one neighbor push it in, and then that decides the rest of the street. So it would really, I think, be helpful if we could get as much out of that citywide.
Yeah, like even if it helped us set a new standard for like adjacent collector streets,
Right.
that we could then base the arterial and resident, everything else off of.
Because that's always a really difficult one to broach.
It has been difficult. Short answer, long answer. Short answer, I think that the way the grant coordinator kind of suggested we develop at least the application for this program specifically is to focus more on downtown. Master plan, maybe strictly adjacent streets. That being said, I've looked throughout the city of Amity, and really we typically have 3 different right-of-way widths that are kind of standard. A 60-foot right-of-way, a 50-foot right-of-way, and a 40-foot right-of-way. And so I think it may be possible to find an connecting street with each of those widths, kind of come up with a standard template for a 40-foot right-of-way street, 50-foot right-of-way street, a 60-foot right-of-way street. And maybe not, right? Maybe it doesn't all. Maybe the 60-foot flagers don't fit into this necessarily. TGM does have other code assistance programs that maybe will help us more on, like, specifically code updates, or development code implementation, things like that. And maybe we find something else entirely to kind of really help the streets. I think we can kind of fit them in. I don't know if it's going to be everything we need or want, given that it will probably have more of a focus on downtown and thinking about how our streets connect us to our downtown, right? So.
Let me ask you, because I have heard about a lot of this, and if I can get information on this from you.
Yeah.
So I can come up to speed.
Yes. There.
You should give him the
I'm saying
transportation master plan, or what is it?
the TSP. So the city has a TSP, Transportation System Plan, that we adopted in 2015. That kind of looks throughout the city and says, these are the roads we need to update. You know, this is how this is going to work. Well, their goal was 2035, 2045. So it looks quite a ways out there. There's a lot of information out there about this grant program as well. I can send you the brochures, the grant guidelines.
Well, I got enough information for this.
Yeah.
Like the plan.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me. Yes. Short answer, yes. Long answer is I will put together some more background. It might be somewhere there. It's a big PDF, I know. I can also tailor a little bit. You can have the whole document for sure, but I can also point out the projects that we're talking about, where we've had issues, right? Where we've had examples of, we're trying to acquire right away, and acquiring more right away is really hard, unless new developers are doing it, and so unless you're waiting around for entire streets to kind of redevelop and everybody give you an extra 8 feet of their yard, it can be difficult to kind of line that up enough. So that's where we've run into issues recently, anyways.
And my take it was a very aspirational type transportation plan, but the implementation, making it realistic and trying to decide, is this a good fit to community needs? Has been where almost every improvement or project we say, can we do this realistically? Does it make sense in this time and place? Is this what people would want? But it comes back to our published approved plans are what we're kind of basing our work on. So there's an incongruence there that it would be great if we could address in the future. And then I'll ask the question that's here in our background. Are there other aspects that we'd like to explore?
I think this is a great first step.
Yes. So again, this is a resolution, and we have resolution 2025-11. Do I have a motion on this item?
I move to approve Resolution 2025-11, a resolution authorizing an application for the Transportation and Growth Management Grant Program.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2025-11, a resolution authorizing an application for the Transportation and Growth Management Grant Program. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. And any abstentions? Our next item is the Yamhill County Sheriff's Office contract. Again, we have quite a bit of background in here and the supporting information in our packet. This is the contract cost that was in our budget, in our approved budget. Nathan, I'll hand it over to you to highlight anything else you think is important.
Yeah, the other kind of, well, so the main message is around the increase, right? The sheriff's office has really worked to recapture a lot of their other costs, right? Fuel mileage rates, materials and services for various categories, electronics, uniforms, safety equipment, and administrative services fee. They've added a lot of those costs to better capture the true cost of deputies being assigned to the city of Amity and for their service here. They also, though, have given us kind of two options for contracts. We haven't had this before. They have a 1 year or a 2 year contract. And the 2 year contract, the first year is the same in either one. But the 2 year contract allows us to kind of lock in that second year with an increase of just 2.5%. And that's their negotiated salary increase for those deputies.
But the 2.5 is across the board for all costs, not just.
Salary.
I think it's because the administrative costs are also predicated on the personnel costs. So. I think some of those stay the same, like equipment, mileage, some of those. So.
Yeah, and that would just be inflationary. Real costs. Are there specific questions on the agreement? The agreement has stayed the same since we first got on the sheriff's office. This is keeping the same amount of coverage, 2 full-time deputies and 10 hours a month overtime, each of those.
I had a question. I know it took them many years to come to an internal agreement. How often does that happen?
It's a 3 year.
So 3 years.
They just got done with their union negotiations to settle. It took quite a long time, and I believe that was 3 years.
Okay.
I'm curious though when that 3 years started, if it took them a long time to get an agreement. We may have these 2 years, and they may not know what the salary looks like after these 2 years. I'm not sure when that union agreement started.
No, I believe that at the end of this 2 years, they would be at the end of their 3rd year.
Okay.
For the union.
Or maybe 2nd and a half.
Yeah.
They don't know. They would be renegotiating at that time. I know during the 2 years that they were in negotiations, our 2 contract seasons that came through while they were in contract negotiations, they kept it pretty stable. I think it was like 3.5 increase. And then when those were settled and they had their new contract in place, this is the first time we're seeing a contract that encapsulates all those costs that have went up for them.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I did it at the public meeting, but asking Nathan to explore if the 2 years would be an option, because I think locking in that 2nd year is better than the unknown. But that's open for debate.
And I think historically, insurance goes up more than 2.5% annually, so it is possibly a better rate than it would be if it's calculated.
But we're looking at is it around 26% increase
For this year.
for this year over last year for police services. So as a council, that's really something we have to look at too. The percentage of our overall budget that goes towards public safety, and the fact that 2 years from now, we could see that again. Um, There's limited revenue. This comes from our general fund. It's not a need we're going to quit having. So it's just a conversation that needs to be ongoing, and to be aware. I know there are other small cities that have their own police, and they are not spending less than we are paying. Their public safety budgets are all in the $500,000 range. So it just seems like nowadays that is the cost to provide these services, but it's something that we will need to plan for.
And knowing that if there was a change to our own police service, it would cost substantially more to start that back up. Which is not a budget we have.
For newer counselors in the public here, one thing that we've done, we've kind of looked at the cost to reinitiate a police force. You have your around $500,000 a year to keep it going, but that initial cost of the startup of getting your program in line and getting people certified and getting your equipment, and getting your cars, that is $1 to $2 million that we saved on top of our current payout before we could say we have a police force. And that's back in the napkin math. We don't have a formal analysis, but when you look at the startup cost of getting a police force back, that's about the minimum that you need.
And you're also taking on the liability and additional risk and cost with that.
Personally, I think that we're getting great service. Things like this drug enforcement unit that they had, just the ability and the relationships they have, training that they get, the oversight, those are not things I feel like our city staff has the capacity to do for local law enforcement. We don't have the resources, but it's a hard conversation. But what's in front of us is a conversation of a 1 or 2 year contract, and if we have a council that's willing to approve that.
Also to note, we have seen our crime stats go down since having sheriff's department over the years.
Over the years, yeah. Let's start on this. Councilor Rachel Walker, do you have any input on the sheriff's contract in general, and then a preference about length of contract?
I think our crime has gone down and our costs are about, or better than they would be otherwise. I'd say stick with what we've been doing, yeah.
And then length of contract, do you see any benefits to 1 year versus 2?
No.
Councilor Shields?
I'm probably would lean towards a 2-year contract. The 2.5% seems pretty reasonable to me. And I think the odds are that in another year could easily exceed that 2.5%, and we would be seeing those savings, even if there was a big jump at the contract negotiation, which is a complete unknown, right? So we would see whatever we see there, no matter what. I think we'd be in a good spot to do a 2-year, personally.
I agree. I think the 2-year gives us a little bit more known stability. I think that the sheriff's department has been a happy addition, and it's worked out well and in our favor. And I think a 2-year contract just gives us that peace of mind of what the rate increase is going to be.
It helps with budgeting and forecasting as well.
Mhm.
Councilor Macadonica?
Considering the indications are that the economy is going to be unpredictable for the next possible 2 to 3 years. For 2 years, there's probably a choice because there's no way to predict what we might have in that second year. Although long term might be worthwhile to consider looking into, some of these laws have been 100 years, but there's a lot of great possibilities of what a local sheriff declared by a town can do with a local militia, which is an old solution, but you know what? With the way times are changing, sometimes you forward what you can do best. So who knows? But as far as this goes, I'd say that 2 years.
Thank you. And off on that tangent, something that I always like to bring to the conversation is that we pay as county taxpayers for county sheriff services as well. And so county sheriffs will respond when needed, whether or not we have a deputy contracted.
I didn't make that.
Yeah. Well, I know, but I'm just saying, so Amity as a city within Yamhill County will always have response from the county sheriffs because it's within the county jurisdiction. But personally, I see very much benefit in having those 2 full-time deputies that spend their hours patrolling here. Well, it sounds like there's consensus around 2 years being the best. So do I have a motion?
I move to approve the 2-year contract proposed by the Yamhill County Sheriff's Office for Police Services and authorize the mayor to execute the agreement.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve a 2-year contract proposed by the Yamhill County Sheriff's Office for Police Services and authorize the mayor to execute the agreements. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. Next we have workman's comp coverage for volunteers. So this is an annual resolution we have to pass for safe to cover our volunteers, their workers' compensation insurance. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
No question. I really
Because, so for instance, I spend about 60 hours a month doing work for the city. If I were to get hurt and we didn't have coverage, I could sue the city.
So you don't have people who are volunteering sign any kind of a document where the city responsibility?
We do, for certain things. Nathan, I talked to you, and I talk about the difference in that. So I know anyone under 18.
I think you have to provide with the city.
You have to
We
provide.
have to provide it, because we have, it's just a liability that the city would face, but
And it
I'm
also,
pretty sure we have to
it
provide
also
with
has to do, so our insurance coverage through CIS that covers the city, it's like I think it's a requirement by them. They wouldn't cover us
if we
if we didn't have working comp.
because we're all these times that we hold for the year.
Or they may still cover us, but our premium to have insurance would be much higher because we don't have that workman's comp for our volunteers.
Gotcha, okay.
Any other discussion or questions?
I move to approve Resolution 2025-10, a resolution extending the City of Amity's workers' compensation coverage to volunteers of the City of Amity.
Second.
Okay. There is a motion on the table to approve resolution 2025-10, a resolution extending the City of Amity's workers' compensation coverage to volunteers of the City of Amity. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. Our last item of new business is an addition to the agenda. This was, Tasha, do you want to give a quick explanation?
Pretty much when I was designing our document for checks, changing the check signers on our personal account, they let me know that April Deck is still listed on the money market, and to remove her, I have to specifically say that I need to remove her from the money market.
Just because it wasn't included
In the last
specifically
minutes,
in the
yeah.
last minutes. We didn't call out this one.
And I can't find change minutes, so.
So that we can get everything in order, I think we've all signed and we're just waiting on this one. Do I have a motion to approve, a motion to update those authorized check signers?
I move to update the list of authorized check signers on the City of Amity's first federal money market account to include Mayor Rachel King, Council President / Finance Committee Chair Melissa Bjorkquist, and City Administrator Nathan Ferrick, and City Recorder Treasurer Natasha Johnson, and remove any and all others to include previous Council President's Finance Committee Chair April Dyke.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of updating the list of authorized check signers on the City of Amity's first federal money market account to include Mayor Rachel King, Council President, Finance Committee Chair Melissa Bjorkquist, City Administrator Nathan Clark, and City Recorder Treasurer Natasha Johnson, and remove any and all others to include previous Council President, Finance Committee Chair April Dyke. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. That is the end of our new business, and we will move into department reports, starting off with our city administrator.
I don't know that I have too much to add other than what's here in the report itself. Goucher Street's been officially paved. Very good news. I shared recently, I think in a weekly report, the SCA paving project for Venus and Stanley is still planned. We're still moving forward, but I believe the paving contractor is finishing up a bunch of ODOT projects that all have to be done before the end of June, so the end of the fiscal year, or biennium for the state. So they're working on that, so they're anticipating that they'd probably be back here to help the city towards the end of July, beginning of August. So we are still looking forward to that. It'll still be the summer, but it'll be a little bit longer. We talked about the SCP. The other big one that I do want to kind of bring up, see if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask, updates or anything like that. The city's existing water intake or now our old intake, over Memorial Day weekend, suffered a pretty bad failure. The pump picked up some silt or something, and was struggling pretty hard for a couple of days. Unfortunately, they limp it along, but we were able to switch over to the new intake. Unfortunately, our reservoir wasn't, because of this, our reservoir wasn't full when they wanted to do the pre-treatment switchover. But we have been able to switch over to the new intake and run our existing filtration plant off of the water straight from the river out of the new intake. Because during the summer right now, the turbidity or the mud, the dirt level in the river is low. Nice and clear water, so our filters can run it. We will need to have the pre-treatment running before the winter. Before any winter kind of rain events. Turn the Southampton River into a chocolate mess. We're still working to get the pre-treatment building fully up and running and to kind of switch over our filters to all run in line But it's been great. It's been really great just the last couple of weeks, just to have a nice consistent intake that we can say, hey, we need 200 gallons per minute, and it gives us 200 gallons per minute. Or we need 250, we need 150, whatever it is, right? And we ask for it and we get it. And the intake works, there's no questions. So that's been wonderful.
So happy.
I would say it's eased my mind, and I'm sure Public Works a lot. I don't want to jinx anything, but I think we can actually go summer without losing our water supply. So that's great news. We are still working on getting, like I said, the filters converted over the pre-treatment process. There's still going to be some questions to work out and figure out the process for, but I think we're going to be running pretty good. The next kind of major hurdle with it is we have to essentially take one filter offline to convert it to the new system, put it in new valves, put it in new controls, all of those things. And so for a little while, we'll be down to one filter. As I mentioned with consistency, one filter running at a consistent 190 gallons per minute can pretty well keep pace with the city's demand. But in the heat of the summer, city's demand goes up quite high. And so there may be a few days here where we don't exactly keep up. We're still trying to figure out some of those questions and figure out how long a filter conversion will actually take. Some of those questions are still out there, the contractor working on and finding out. We may see some requests from the city. You know, if it comes down to it, if we get a week and a half into a filter conversion, they're still struggling, and we, you know, our reservoirs are getting a little bit lower. We see some requests to kind of reduce water usage, but right now I'm not anticipating anything like that. I think we'll be able to do it faster than a week and a half, and I think we'll be able to keep our filters and water system running pretty well. But that's where we're at. Any questions on the water system? Any other thoughts or questions about what we're talking about? There's been a lot going on with it over the last few weeks.
So the main components that were upgraded was the new intake in the river, that's now online.
Yes.
It's going for all new piping
Mhm.
that we put from the river all the way to the treatment plant, but it's not going into the brand new pre-treatment center.
Correct.
It's going into our current, which will keep running, right? So it will be pre-treatment and the building treatment we're doing now.
Yep.
And then also the clear wells that are new.
Yes. So right now we're still using our old clear well. Basically, the way they're going to get everything online, they got the intake online. They're going to work to get. Well, we've started getting the pre-treatment online. We've proven tested, like proof of concept, that the pre-treatment can run. There's some complications. The pre-treatment right now can't run water into our existing filters. Our existing filters have a valve on them that require pressure from the pump, and water is fed via gravity from the pre-treatment building into the filter building, and it only creates, you know, the pre-treatment plate fillers, the equipment is pretty tall, it's like 20 feet up, and it's like 4 psi, instead of the 35, 50 psi that you normally get from our intake pump. And so that's why we're able to run off the intake, because it provides the pressure. We're not currently able to run off of the pre-treatment building. We know that the pre-treatment building can run. We've turned it on, we've run water through it, and out to the backwash. Like I said, proof of concept, it worked well. At least one of the trains did. We found some errors with the other train. They're working on fixing those. But we can keep testing them, right? We can turn off our filters for a little while and keep testing the pre-treatment building. But because of that complication of the valve on the existing filters, we're hoping to convert a filter to the new controls, new valving. That way, we can turn the pre-treatment process on, run that filter, and then convert the second filter. But once we have that, then essentially the pre-treatment can continuously run. Our filter can continuously run. We'll have 2 that can run.
And then the upgrades to the treatment center. What are those?
Yeah, so that's upgraded valving. Right now, like I said, those valves are complicated, or they're old clay valves. So we're getting new valving, new controls. We also kind of a big piece of it is right now our filter boxes, if you will, filter beds, have two functions. They have a clarifier and then the filtration media. Because of the pre-treatment process, we're not going to need that clarifier anymore. So they're taking that out, extending the filtration in the big metal rectangle. I'm happy to give a tour if anybody wants to go see it, but and see what I'm talking about.
I recommend you all should. That's why I've been following this water saga and doing everything I can to push law for 5 years now.
Yes, and so we'll be extending the filtration media piece of it, and essentially just redo the piping and the valving. That will give us a little bit more speed. Right now, each filter can handle about 190 gallons per minute. With that extra filtration media surface area, we'll be able to handle, I don't know what the estimate is, probably like 220, 230 per filter. So a little bit more water production capacity in the filters, but the big piece of the upgrade is going to be that the pre-treatment's going to handle all dirt, and our filters should just be able to run for a really long time. Right now, they have to wash every few hours.
So it won't be working near this.
Yeah.
Where is the
So the new intake is right along Highway 153. If you were to drive towards Sheridan, or they call it the Green Bridge. I don't know if you're familiar with the Green Bridge, but
No.
at least the locals from a long time ago call it the Green Bridge.
I still,
There's a bridge, it's not green at all. I think it used to be.
it used to be green. Steel Bridge, yeah.
Yeah, it's not anymore. Right now, it's a normal flat. Anyway, as you're driving, you kind of go, if you're driving to Sheridan, you go down the hill, and you are in a big open field kind of thing. And then you cross over the South Angle River at one point. The new intake is right there on the left, just before the bridge.
So obviously the intake is way down deep in the river. It's in a much better spot. But there's also, you can see security fencing and stuff right on the left side of the road. So that will be like, oh, down the river right there is where we're coming from. And the placement of the intake that we've been using and working along was a little north of there on a much shallower part of the river in the, however long the river had kind of shifted. So when the water levels would go down, we were constantly just sucking silt and grossness. And so going through filters so fast and not pulling the water we needed. And so with expensive engineering, we now have a much better place that should work well for us. Excuse my excitement, but that is very exciting for us.
The last thing, if I could have for Counselor Luther, he emailed me, let me know that he would not be able to make me and he wanted to mention, he asked me to mention, the only thing I would like to bring up is that there was a sighting of a mama bear and her two cubs on Gallup Street by the Amity Christian Church. He urges folks to not engage with the bear or feed the bear if an emergency occurs. Call the sheriff's office, but if they are being mischievous, getting into garbage cans and or harassing chickens or goats, reach out to Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. If they need help doing that, Council Luther is more than happy to help be the liaison between the citizen and ODFW. So we see some more sightings. I'm happy to help as well, right? But it sounds like Council Luther might be familiar with ODFW and is happy to make contacts. I don't want to see any one of our citizens hurt by wildlife coming into our town, nor do we want to see the bears euthanized or put down for such acts. So,
Thank you.
and then let's see. Okay, Councilor Thompson also did let me know shortly before 7 that she's super sick and not able to come. So,
Oh, bummer.
yeah.
Okay. I mean, obviously she's not here, bummer, she's sick. And then in your report, you asked about the vendor registration and the business licenses, the umbrella. Did all the counselors get a chance to read that in the report? So if someone rents, say, this community space, do we need to get, was the intent of council when we passed the temporary vendor license for every single vendor to have their own business license? Or I don't know if it was a recommendation or just stated that the person renting the facility we would make sure they would have a business license and then that kind of umbrellas them to anyone they invite.
The thinking for that is that the purpose of the business license is to have contact information and general accountability, right? That if something comes up, the city can at least call somebody and say, hey, like, put a stop to it. And generally, for an event like that, where they're hosting other vendors, if we have their contact information, we can say, hey, one of your people is making a mess or doing something, can you put a stop to it? They can do that, right? They're tracking their vendors, they're tracking their people.
And they also take on the liability by signing the rental agreement.
Yeah.
And then in the other situation brought up was like the Amity Mingle Corner. So if they're going to invite people in that might not necessarily be like a registered business through the state, do they need to come to City Hall and get a business license?
Sorry, I couldn't hear that last.
The Amity Mingle Corner, if they're inviting people in to have a booth on their property, do we feel like all those people need their own business license, or should they just fall under the Mingle Corner's business license? Because we recently passed the temporary vendor license, so a business license for a month. Just trying to nail down the council's intent on that.
I think when we discussed it, it was each individual person getting a vendor license, which is why I think we made it a shorter time frame option and cheaper.
So another issue, this is actually what brought it up, was the Amity Day Committee, or Amity Day. So they're only there for 2 or 3 hours, and
Right.
now we require them to pay a vendor fee and a temporary business license.
Mm-hmm.
Is what actually brought up this conversation.
Well, and that's going to happen at Daffodil Festival. And
So they're only here for a couple hours.
how does that work? Is it separate if it's a garage sale in here?
For ours, they pay to rent out this whole facility. It's not really a business.
Yeah, garages don't typically have a business license.
Okay.
In the past, you can see in the past, the city has required that, but
I mean, they're paying a fine, a pretty good fine to have it here.
That's not fine.
A
A rental. Yeah.
And I agree that was the intent and why we made it only $12, but I think the question before us is like, does that make sense to our intent?
Mhm.
So it does if you're thinking like, well, the city gets $12 for each of those people, but not if you're like, what is they're not a business in the sense that they have like a CCB number or a business, you know, they're
Potentially, yeah.
yeah. They could be though, like at the Daffodil Festival, each of those are, or a lot of them are actual businesses.
Mm-hmm. It's tricky. I don't know how to handle that.
Is it $12? I think that was what was sent out.
it's $12 1 month.
Is that what was sent out? We just had a lot of pushback from.
Well, we had a couple people ask. Yeah, we had a couple people ask questions if they really needed to have both. I think
For the Amity
for the
Day?
Amity Day, yeah. And so that raised the question. We realized we hadn't necessarily, required it individually of each person at like Daffodil Festival or other events. And
Yeah, when I was thinking this through in my head, it would be that the Amity Day Committee could potentially need to buy a business license because we're using the park. Or when we have the Daffodil Festival, DIG would need to buy a business license.
Does that go the same for softball tournaments and things like that also then? Or is it?
If they're inviting others to come sell
Mm.
at the thing. So
But
that's
like
it.
if they're selling merch or something?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. because
concessions,
They could choose to have one, like they would pay the rental fee
Mm-hmm.
to have, if you're renting the kitchen. But if they're going to be vending, then yes, they would need to have a business license. If they were renting it to have a family barbecue, they wouldn't need to. But if they're renting it for a softball game and inviting a cart in to sell hot dogs, then yes, they would. Or they could ask the hot dog cart to do it. But they've rented the city's space. I'm making a few assumptions here, just based on what I'm thinking, but
The enforcement of that seems out of staff's capacity.
So yeah, we're not gonna go.
Right.
well, and that was my lean of thinking is if we had the renting body make sure they had a business license, then it would be like Nathan said, like for content, for issues, for liability. By having that agreement, you are the contact and you take on the liability.
So if I did, or that road festival, it'd only be the $12, so it's only for 1 month, not the whole one.
Yeah. And a lot of times we waive fees for nonprofits that use this space or park space, but we would not need to waive $12.
Does that simplify it for staff?
Yeah, we're just gonna update our business license, because I think that's for some educational stuff.
Yeah. Exactly. How do the notes for later this year? Just take a good look at the business license ordinance and have a broad discussion about it. But for events, if it aligns with the city council looking for to just have us collect, have the organizing entity register for the business license, that makes it easier on us for sure.
I don't think the fee,
And, right, like, they charge $45 a person to have a booth.
I don't think the fee is the driving factor for us. It's right.
I don't think so either. And
Yeah.
at that meeting, that was our intention for every single
Right.
vendor. So, but with this discussion,
Well, and I'm wondering, and just thinking out loud here, would there be any benefit to requiring whoever is getting the business license to provide a list of their vendors? That way, if we do have issues with certain vendors that we're like, who are repeat offenders, well, this vendor on your list we don't want to have. And I mean, maybe it just gives some a little more oversight. Is that
I feel like
unreasonable?
that would be appropriate for cities rented space, not for private property.
Not like the Mingle
The
corner.
Mingle Corner where it's for property she's inviting people in.
That's true. Yeah.
But as far as people that come here, because if they're repeatedly being a vendor at events in the community center and every time there's an issue, then you would know.
That's a good idea.
That is a good thing.
Not to add more for staff.
No, I think it gets what we were hoping for while making it simple as possible, right? Provide us a list of your vendors.
And you can require that day of, like
Yep.
when you hand out the key.
Yep.
Councilor Mike Bronco, any thoughts, opinions?
No, I agree.
Okay.
Simplest is best. So the idea of growing and their responsibility to listed, if I'm hearing correctly, makes sense.
Councilor Rachel Bonka, anything to add?
No, I agree. If the goal is to have contact information and knowledge about who's around doing what, and, you know, if it's the responsibility of the umbrella, whatever, then
Got the consensus you need and direction, and then, looking at the business license ordinance or any of that would be great along with the fee schedule again.
Yeah, I think, like I said, as I said, the elementary library, hoping to kind of compile those changes. We've had a few other issues with like planning, related costs and things like that, and so hoping to kind of bring that back and,
Package.
yes, have maybe an updated format as well, and just see if we can make it clear, stuff like that.
Because we all like to contribute, that might be something that maybe we could do as a work session first. Like you could present something.
Yeah.
Mostly done at a work session. Okay. Great. Anything else from the city administrator or questions or comments for? Okay.
Oh, I did have a question. I know there's been more discussion of speeding through town again. And I know in our goal setting, we talked about Public Works having a set schedule of putting out the radar sign. And I don't think I've seen that implemented anywhere.
No, you have not.
And so just having that set schedule of where it moves around town, I think would be helpful.
Thank you for bringing that up. We had a lot during that goal setting, so it's good if something's not getting addressed. It very likely could be getting addressed behind the scenes, but feel free to bring it up.
Please bring it up.
Okay, if nothing else, we'll move on to our city reporter. Tasha, do you have anything to add?
No, just in the way the park is coming up, 27.
The 27th. We'll have a work session before then.
I'll tell you that. I think we need to order popcorn.
Yeah, it's on my list.
Okay.
Public Works, Library. Anything you want to add on their behalf, Nathan?
Okay.
Just checking. And then we have a city engineer billing report and the city attorney and planner billing report by the COG. Any questions, comments I can see from that? All right, we will move on to business friendly area city councilors, and we will start off with council president Melissa Morgan.
Nothing to add.
Council Shields.
I changed my mind, sorry. It was really exciting this year to have additional community members be a part of the budget committee, and they are on for 2 years. So that was exciting, and the feedback is definitely welcome always. So.
Yes. Now, Council Shields.
Sorry.
Well, Counselor Luker stole my Blackbird thunder, so I'm gonna have to pass. Have nothing to add now.
Councilor Rachel Bonko, anything for the good of the order? And Councilman Bonko? All right.
Wait, I had one more.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I didn't write it down. It was just in my head. In reading the library report, our library staff pointed out that there are passes that you can check out. And I didn't know this when I first moved to Oregon. And so I think it's really helpful to just throw it out there that there are passes you can check out for, they're called cultural passes. And there's one to the Oregon Garden. There is the Gilbert House in Salem, the Evergreen Museum, Northwest Forests, and then that gives you free day use in most parks in Oregon and Washington. So it's a great program, and take advantage of it because the libraries are awesome.
Thank you. Mayor's report and final comments. I don't have a formal report. One thing I want to highlight is that Amity Day is moving forward. We have merchandise just about to be ordered along with all the signs. We have the signups up. We're bringing in an art stage, so there'll be additional entertainment this year in the afternoon. 14 vendors have replied back with interest in the initial agreement to come join us. And then just checking in, I know it's early, but that's July 26th. We'd love to have council presence. We've ordered a banner for us to hold in the parade. So last year, a banner, Amity banner. Last year, City Council followed the Grand Marshals in the parade, and this year we plan to do the same, but we will now have an Amity Day banner. So,
When does it start and end? What time?
10 o'clock is the parade start time, and it took us less than 20 minutes, I would say.
It's the 26th, right?
26, yes, Saturday the 26th. So we'll talk about that more. And I didn't put my notes, so I'm probably forgetting something, but my final thing of the evening is actually a citizen comment on behalf of the Amity senior parents to thank Public Works and the city for hanging up the senior banners and getting them back down when we needed them. So that was great. And then just from DIG, I will say that the flower baskets, 4 days from DIG, the flower baskets are looking good. And any questions or anything for the good of the work? All right, I will ask for final motion of the evening.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor of adjourning our meeting at 8:37, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?